So I want to read a comment, a question from one of my students. Here's what they said. Hey Nathan, there is a situation at my parish where my priest has been wanting to make the move from westernized Byzantine chant to something more proper. I have been keeping him in the loop with my progress, and he would like to have me start leading my parish chanting ministry since he knows I have been learning. However, I am not sure how exactly I want to arrange services. I still consider myself a beginner and definitely feel overwhelmed with this. It is a pretty serious feeling of imposter syndrome. How can I find music to arrange services with, and how can I ensure I am doing my best to make things improve? So, that's a great question, and I'm sure that he is not the only person experiencing this. I bet there are other people watching who are in a similar position, so that's what this video is going to be about. Now, it's one thing to become, let's say, the lead chanter of your parish, to be assigned the role of the lead chanter in your parish in a situation where maybe you requested to do so. Maybe you were expecting it in one way or another. And it's another thing to almost be thrown into this role, which happens sometimes. Maybe you're at a parish where there's kind of no lead chanter, and everyone saw that you had a lot of knowledge, and they put you in charge. Or along similar lines, maybe the previous lead chanter stepped down or something, and they kind of chose you as the replacement. But maybe you weren't even expecting to be in this role. It was kind of a shock to you. You were just kind of thrown into this role because you were the most qualified. And that's a good thing, but it could also be intimidating. So that's what I want to talk about. Well, first of all, good for you for kind of taking this leap and doing something challenging, doing something that might be intimidating, and you're still trying to make the best of it. That's good. That's admirable. You're on the right track. And the underlying assumption in this video is that your goal as the lead chanter is to actually do things correctly and traditional, to do things, to chant traditional Byzantine music. Not Western stuff, not polyphonic stuff, but actual Byzantine notation, Byzantine music. I'm assuming that is your goal. If that's your goal and you're wondering how to go about it, that's what this video is for. So, just a few thoughts, a few things you can do. First of all, before anything else, you should really, and I assume you're already doing this, but you need to continue to just study. Just study the basics, right? And especially when you become the lead chanter, study the order of the services. Those of us who use the Aegis digital chant stand will see that it's very conveniently laid out. If you go to the Orthros or Liturgy or Vespers document on the Aegis site for a specific day, it's all put together for you. But so you don't have to go from book to book like they might have to do in Greece, right? In many parishes where we don't have this type of setup. But even though it's all conveniently put together for you, what you should do is go through the services and study the order, study the structure of our services. So for example, if you go to Sunday morning Orthros, and you go on the Aegis website, you click the document for the, let's say, this Sunday's Orthros. What's going to be in third mode? So we're going to have the third mode hymns from what we call the Anastissimatarion, the resurrectional hymns that go in the cycle of the 8 modes for Saturday night and Sunday. That's already going to be put in there. But then we're going to have hymns, if let's say there's a feast day, or the leave taking of a feast day, or the Sunday after a major feast day, or if a feast day of a saint happens to fall on that Sunday. You're also going to notice there's going to be hymns from the Meneon for that saint or that feast day added into the service. Now, Aegis puts it all there for you, but what we would normally have to do is we would have to go to a different book. There's the Anastisimatario, and then there's the Meneon, right? And then, there's a lot more. There's so much to this. There's the Gatavasias. You would go, and there's the canon, depending on what your parish does. Gatavasias, the canon, we would go to the Irmologion to find those hymns. They change based on the feast day, based on the seasonal, the time of year, right? And there's the Triodion, there's the Penticostarion, there's these periods of during our church year that the Triodion can begin on a different day depending on the year. It's not always the same day, but you're going to have to go to a different book, the Triodion book, to find the Triodion hymns. So my point is, yes, Aegis puts it all together in one document, but it would really help you to go and actually study the actual structure so you can be familiar with it and not just rely on it being all put together for you. Okay, that's the first step. And by the way, if you're wanting to work with me one-on-one to navigate this stuff, because it can be stressful, there's a lot involved. If you want to work with me one-on-one to learn anything related to Byzantine music, to train your voice, to learn the notation, to learn anything that you want to learn as a chanter, you just click the link in the description. You can schedule a free online lesson. Give it a try. It's on Zoom. I work with busy people who have busy schedules. They might not have, time for the sort of studying at the seminary or something. If that sounds like a good fit for you, you can give it a try. You can see if we're a good fit. But anyway. So, you have become the lead chanter. So there's a lot to navigate. There's a lot to think about. Well, this is especially for people in the United States. One thing you need to be aware of is you need to think about what the previous setup was before you became the lead chanter. Who was in charge before you, and what were they doing? And very likely, the person in charge before you was maybe doing things in a very possibly westernized sort of way. They might have not been doing everything correctly, but the point I'm trying to make is the parish, the congregation, is used to things being done a certain way. It might not be the right way, but they are used to things being done a certain way. This especially applies in the case of many parishes who have been accustomed to using what we would call the Green Book, which is a very westernized version of the Divine Liturgy hymns based on the melodies of John Sakellarides. And this is a book that many parishes are accustomed to using every single Sunday, the same exact melodies, and they all sing along, right? The whole parish sings along to this stuff, and they're used to it. Now, what will happen if you come in and you all of a sudden, out of nowhere, start chanting really traditional stuff from Stanitsas or whatever? It's going to be a bit of a shock to the congregation because they're used to things being done a specific way, and they might get mad. So what you basically have to do is you have to ease them into things, right? In other words, you can't just out of nowhere do full-on traditional stuff. So slowly get them used to your way of doing things. Stick with some Green Book stuff or whatever they are used to. Let's say they're used to the green book, stick with that for a while, and then introduce maybe something some traditional thing that you're wanting to use. Maybe use one, like a doxology, right? And then maybe a cherubic hymn or a communion hymn, and still do some green book stuff. But I've seen the other extreme of parishes saying, well, they're used to the green book stuff. We gotta ease them in. We gotta be very careful and not shock them with all these new melodies because they like to sing along. Let's just do green book stuff, and slowly we'll introduce the Byzantine things. Well, that's good, but then I would listen to their live stream like 5 years later, and it's still green book stuff. So it's like, okay, you never did the thing you said you were going to do. So you don't want to do that either. But you do want to ease them into it slowly. Another sort of point here is it's really not your job. It's ultimately not your job to make the congregation happy, right? For example, the first parish I was chanting at, they were very used to Western stuff, polyphonic stuff, organs, whatever. Western notation, they really liked that. Even like Russian style type of hymns. And I learned to chant from the monastic sort of St. Anthony's type of style. And they didn't always like the way I did things, but I never, ever changed the way I did things. The only difference is now I'm even more traditional. I'm even more like Athonite, whatever you want to call it. I try to copy directly from what I hear from the very authentic sort of Mount Athos chanters. So I didn't change to make the congregation happy, many of whom may have been converts who are used to Protestant bands or as Episcopalians or Catholics. I did not change what I did to make them happy, and neither should you. But what you should do is be aware of what they're used to and slowly ease them into the correct way of doing things. And also, at the same time, be considerate of your situation. Like, we're not on Mount Athos. We're in the United States, so you should do things in English if that's what they want. You shouldn't insist on doing things in Greek. It's okay to do things in English in the United States. You should also keep in mind that there are elderly people in church, there are kids, the priest is probably tired, so I'm not saying to do the 45-minute long 8-tone Theotokia Parthena from Petros Bereketis during the Orthros. Like, that's not... Just because they do something on Mount Athos doesn't mean you should do it in your parish. Use your discretion, right? You can still use traditional Byzantine melodies and it also be brief. Doesn't have to be 5 hours long. So, again, just be considerate. The next thing is you have to take baby steps, not just for the parish, but you have to do this for the sake of yourself and not stressing yourself out. I know we would like to do everything exactly correctly right at the beginning. We want to do everything right. We want to do everything the traditional way. But when you've just first taken on this responsibility of the lead chanter and you've got other chanters with you and you're all chanting together, for the sake of not stressing yourself out, you need to take baby steps instead of going full on traditional whatever, What do I mean by that? I'm going to give you some examples. Because your goal is to do things traditionally and correctly, but that might not necessarily happen overnight. Remember my student whose comment I read, he's a beginner, basically. And it's very common, even for someone who's a beginner, to be placed in charge of the chanting, and sometimes it can be stressful to feel like you have to do everything exactly right. So here's what you can do instead. Here's a bit of a middle ground. Most of you know the Ages digital chant stand. Like I just mentioned, it's convenient. It's got everything laid out for you. It's got the prosomia in English, metered with the little star, the little asterisks in the middle, so it can kind of help you out with the pace of the melody, whatever you want to call it. And it's also got the option, if you have a tablet, you can, first of all, you can print out the service, everyone can follow along, but then you can also click on the whatever hymn, and you can get that hymn in Western and Byzantine notation for the most part, in English and in Greek, probably, especially in English. He has a lot of stuff there, and then you can also hear a recording of it. So it's very, very convenient, is the point I'm trying to make. And especially if you have a tablet, and if the other chanters have their own tablet, you can kind of pull it up on your tablet and everyone can follow along. Very convenient. Now, also you can be accommodating to those who, let's say, only know Western notation. Ultimately, you want to be all using Byzantine notation together, but starting out, you might have people who only know Western. That's okay. You can still include them and be accommodating to them. And like I said, you can literally pull up that hymn, whatever you're chanting, in Western notation on the Ages thing. Now, you are probably thinking that the hymns on the Ages digital chant stand are sometimes maybe not very good sometimes. Just saying. Maybe just they're not the best. Right? But I would say that as part of taking these sort of baby steps to learn, it's totally fine to use the Ages stuff, even if you don't really like it that much. You know, it's simple, it's convenient, it's easy to learn. It's easy to access, right? There's less confusion. There's enough confusion as it is when you have multiple chanters together and you're trying to coordinate and you're trying to get everybody to be on the same page. You don't want the extra stress of having to go from book to book, and we're going to go to St. Anthony's for this hymn and then Gabriel Cremines and then whatever. You can just be on Ages for the whole service, and it's convenient. If you are traveling, if you're on a road trip and you're driving and you get hungry and you need to stop somewhere and get something to eat, especially if you have kids in the car, they're cranky, they're crying, whatever, you're hungry, you're tired, where are you going to stop? You're going to stop at the nearest gas station, probably. You can fill up your car with gas, you can get something to eat, and then you can continue with your road trip. It's easy, it's convenient. And then, when you get to your destination, then you can go to Whole Foods or whatever and get something organic, get something healthy. But when you're in the middle of a road trip, the quality of something is maybe not your number one concern. Maybe your number one concern is just the convenience. It's the same thing here. So don't be afraid to do what's convenient and to do things in baby steps. And another way you can do this, basically, is, of course, there's a lot of different tones in Byzantine music. There's a lot of there's 8 tones, but there's a lot of different melodies you can choose from. And if you look at once you get comfortable, especially when it comes to the liturgy, one source you can go to is the St. Anthony's Divine Music Project, which is actually a very good source of English music. And what you'll find, especially for the liturgy, I recommend this St. Anthony's page and their resources, especially for the Divine Liturgy. And what you'll see is they will actually have the Divine Liturgy hymns in all 8 tones. My suggestion when you are ready for this is just pick one tone, right? Like the first tone, for example, it's one of the easiest. Or you can pick play go fourth, or one of the simple ones, diatonic, Pick one mode, and basically you can do the whole liturgy. You can do the doxology and the whole liturgy, meaning the cherubic hymn and everything after that, in that mode. So you can learn that mode, and you can learn some hymns in that one mode that you choose. And then you can do that for the liturgy every time. And there's a temptation to use a bunch of different modes, and when you get to that point, you can do the liturgy hymns in the mode of the week. You can do that. But for now, again, baby steps. Just, you don't want to stress yourself out too much. Pick one tone, and from the doxology and the cherubic hymn afterwards, everything after that, just do everything in that tone, right? And have everyone else learn that tone. And then you just slowly expand, slowly challenge yourself to learn new things, but you don't do it all at once, even though you may want to. Just like the bench press, I'm sure those of you who work out, you didn't go into the gym saying, oh, I just really want to bench just the bar for the rest of my life. I'm sure you wanted to bench multiple plates and heavy stuff, but you can't start with that. You can't just start with that out of nowhere. You had to start with the bar and then slowly ease your way up, ease your way into heavier things. Well, it's the same thing with this. So keep that in mind. Along the same lines, if something makes things easier for you, then do it. So if using an ESON machine quietly in the back to give you a sort of pitch that you can use as a group, if that makes things easier for you, do it. That doesn't mean you have to do that for the rest of your life, but for now you can make use of that. Same thing with a tuning fork. Same thing with there might be hymns you don't know very well. There might be hymns that you struggle to read on the notation, but you know a version of it by memory. You can improvise. You can improvise certain hymns based on the tone. Do it. It's okay. You don't have to do everything perfectly day one, right? But your long-term goal should always be to push yourself to do things the actual correct way. But you might not achieve that right now, so just be patient. Also, just preparation the night before. Look through the hymns of the day, like I was saying, and understand where they're coming from. You've got the Anastissimatario stuff, the Mineon, the whatever it might be. Look through it, familiarize yourself with it, study that mode of the week, so you can be familiar with it, and that's going to get rid of so much anxiety that you might have, while you are chanting up there with the group. And along the same lines, you want to communicate with the other chanters. Have some sort of group text where you can communicate with them and kind of figure things out, coordinate things beforehand. Who's going to be chanting what? Who has find out what things people know, what they don't know, who can chant what, and so on. Just coordinate that stuff. Have some sort of order or rotation. Don't try to do everything yourself. It's best to have a rotation. If the other chanters know how to chant things, have them take turns, just like during Orthros, and let other people, let them, participate. Give permission to yourself and to the other chanters to mess up, because you're gonna mess up. So might as well give yourself permission to do so, because an uptight, stressed leader will basically that energy that you have, if it's stressed, if it's uptight and negative, it's going to trickle down to the rest of the chanters. It's going to spread to the parish. The parishioners are going to sense it, right? So it's better to have a calm, peaceful, spiritual, prayerful demeanor and state where you allow yourself to mess up. That's better than being this uptight, controlling person that needs to do everything right. Give yourself permission to make mistakes, as you don't want to just stress everybody out. Another thing to remember, the person before you, the lead chanter before you, probably wasn't a professional. If you're in the United States, the person before you probably was not a professional. So go easy on yourself and don't put these insane expectations on you, who is just starting out, that the person before you probably didn't even live up to. So don't stress yourself out. Also, you're going to grow and you're going to learn a bunch through the experience of being the lead chanter, just through the experience of being up there and leading and chanting. You're going to learn a lot in the process. So be okay with that, embrace that, and let yourself grow. And, be humble, acknowledge you are a beginner, if you're a beginner, and therefore you're not better than the other chanters. Right? Don't abuse your authority. And the last thing I want to mention is, I've seen before where certain lead chanters might abuse their authority. They see that everyone else looks up to them. The other chanters look up to them because they're the leader. The other chanters might not know any better as far as what is correct and what isn't. So you can almost have this advantage of control over them, which you don't want to see it that way. You don't want to abuse your power. You don't want to take advantage of them or exert control over them. It's your job it's your responsibility to do things correctly, but to also be compassionate towards the other chanters and know that everybody's doing their best. And it's not your job to exert control over them. You've just been placed with the responsibility to lead and to be a good example to them. Of course, I'm sure you know this stuff, but it has to be said. At the same time, you have been placed with this responsibility as the leader, and you should do so confidently, and don't be afraid to make decisions, because you have been placed in this position, right? And just do things to the best of your ability, and don't necessarily doubt yourself a bunch, and just be faithful to the tradition and keep improving over time. So, what do you think? Is this helpful? Share your thoughts in the comments, and send this video to somebody who has just become a lead chanter, because I know they will benefit from it. Okay, God bless you.